This is Research Like a Pro, Episode 41, FamilySearch Family Tree and the GPS. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the creators of the Amazon best-selling book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist's Guide. I'm Nicole, co-host of the podcast. Join Diana and me as we discuss how to stay organized, make progress in our research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm Nicole Dyer, co-host of the Research Like a Pro Genealogy podcast. I'm here with accredited genealogist Diana Elder. Hi, Diana. How are you?
I'm doing great today. So fun to be here and talking about our favorite thing, genealogy. And today we have a fun review from a listener. This is PLDENC44 on Stitcher. And this person says, the title is Research Focused. So RLP, or Research Like a Pro, focuses more on research techniques than other genealogy podcasts I've listened to. It's great for anyone serious about becoming a better researcher. So thank you so much for that review, PLDENC44. That's very cryptic. I wonder who you are. We are just so excited to have people leave us reviews and let us know that Research Like a Pro is helping them. It makes my day when I get an email or a comment on a Facebook group that their life has changed because they're doing the Research Like a Pro process. And my life definitely changed when I learned the process. So it's all good. So Nicole, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about FamilySearch and the Genealogical Proof Standard, or GPS, specifically the FamilySearch Family Tree, and how that can be improved by applying the GPS. So first of all, what is the GPS and why do we need it? So you might have felt that you needed something like the GPS if you ever have been the recipient of someone else's research. Maybe you've got a bunch of family group sheets, pedigree charts, photos, documents, and you're not sure how to know if any of it is accurate. Maybe some of the facts on the records don't agree. There's some conflicting evidence and information, and you can't really determine if some of the conclusions are really proven or not. So if you've ever had any of these type of questions, then you will probably recognize the need for a standard to measure our genealogical conclusions. And the Genealogy Proof Standard is that standard. And it was created by the Board for Certification of Genealogists. And they brought this standard to life from 1997 to 2000. And it contains 5 components that, when followed, will help our genealogical work be credible and trustworthy. And as many of you know, the second edition of the book, Genealogy Standards, which tells about the Genealogy Proof Standard, just came out. So make sure that you get a copy so that you can have all the updated standards, which include new standards for incorporating DNA evidence.
Okay, so there are 5 standards, and we're going to go through each one of those and just talk about how it relates to the FamilySearch Family Tree. And the very first one is reasonably exhaustive research. And I have to say that I used to teach a class in my local church, and whenever I would say something like reasonably exhaustive research, everybody would just crack up because they, thought I was saying reasonably exhausting research, and that's how they were looking at this. This was exhausting, doing this research. But really what we are meaning with reasonably exhaustive research is that we are looking at all the potential sources. So I'm just going to read from my brand new book, which I just got in the mail. I'm so excited to have it. So this is a definition from second edition of Genealogy Standards. Reasonably exhaustive research, emphasizing original records, providing participants information for all evidence that might answer a genealogist's question about an identity, relationship, event, or situation. Wow, so those are a lot of really big words. Here's a statement a little further on that gives a little more information. Reasonably exhaustive research ensures examination of all potentially relevant sources. It minimizes the risk that undiscovered evidence will overturn a too hasty conclusion. Okay, so how many times have we maybe done a too hasty conclusion? We find one record and it's the headstone in a cemetery and it gives the birth and death and the marriage, and boom, we're done. We've discovered everything there is to know about that ancestor. We have all their vital facts, right? So, as you might know, as you're listening, the more research you do, the more you're going to uncover, and the more chance that you're going to have this conflicting information. Because what if that headstone information was given by a child who really didn't know the correct birth date? Or what if the death information was actually chiseled onto that headstone incorrectly? Or what if there were 3 other marriages besides the one that's listed on there? So when we do reasonably exhaustive research, we make sure that we are covering our bases and that we're not going to all of a sudden find new information that completely turns our hypothesis or our conclusion upside down.
So, do you mean that we should actually look for all of the censuses in a person's life rather than just one?
Yes, I do. And we should look for more than one source for every event of their life. Is there something else that talks about the death record? Is there a death certificate besides the headstone? Is there an obituary? Is there a newspaper notice? We have to think of other sources that will lead us to our information. So when we are thinking about the FamilySearch Family Tree, how does this apply? Well, we're going to use the example of my second great-grandfather, Nicole's third great-grandfather, Robert Sisney Royston, to do all of our examples today. So looking at his page, the first thing that I can do is see what's actually been found on him. Look at the list of sources that are on a person. So if you are just starting out in your genealogy, and I know a lot of you listening are just beginning, and you are listening to us hoping that you're going to figure out how to do this. Well, here's something that you can do as a very beginner. When you go to your FamilySearch Family Tree and you look at an ancestor, I like to say start pretty early in, like a grandparent, to make sure you're building correctly out. Go look at their sources. The sources are now all put in chronological order, which is fabulous. It used to be that we would have to drag them and drop them to get them chronological. But you can look at them now in chronological order and take a look and see what has already been found. So you can look and see, do they have every census of their life? My guy, Robert Sisney Royston, was born in 1848. So what's the first census he's going to be on, Nicole?
1850.
That is correct. And he should be on every census until he dies in 1915. So he should be there from 1850 to 1910, with the exception of the 1890. So when I look at his sources on FamilySearch Family Tree, looking at censuses, there is a glaring census missing, and that's 1870. Where was he in 1870? So that shows me that maybe we haven't done reasonably exhaustive research on this ancestor because there's something missing. Also, there's no death certificate listed, and there's no birth certificate, and there is no marriage certificate. So it looks like I have not done very good research on my ancestor, doesn't it?
Well, it looks like you found a lot. I mean, there are 19 sources after all, including a settlement record, a news article, and a patent file. So I can see that someone's done a lot. And there's Find a Grave. So this person, whoever researched them, found a lot of things.
Yes, and that would be me. So thank you for saying that. Well, and there also is 2 1880 censuses. So this is kind of an interesting case because when you learn a little bit more about the area that Robert Sisney was living in, there were no birth and death records for when he was born in Alabama or when he died in Oklahoma. And the marriage record should exist, but that would have been in Texas. And as we all know, there are a lot of burned courthouses in Texas. And as it turns out, the courthouse burned right after his marriage in Texas when I finally figured out his marriage date. And so that doesn't exist either. So how is anybody going to know that I really did all this research and that I've thought about all these different types of things unless I record that somewhere?
Well, I noticed that you added as a source a research report that you wrote.
Exactly. And I put in that report all of this type of stuff. There was no birth certificate, there is no death certificate, so someone could actually see what I did. Now, another thing that you could do is you could upload your research log and put that on there as a source so somebody could see all the different searches that you've done. And it would also be a reminder, for me that if I uploaded it, that I had put that there. So there's another thing you can do, and this is add a new discussion. And add a new discussion is under Collaborate across the top of your ancestors page. It's not details page, it's just his page, it's Collaborate. And so you can open a discussion up and discuss something about your ancestor. So I put a little note in here on discussion, and I said, I titled it Birth and Death Information for Robert Sisney Royston, and I just simply said, birth and death information for Robert Sisney Royston was obtained from his headstone. Birth records were not generally kept in Alabama until after 1908. No death certificate in Stevens County, Oklahoma. His place of burial was located by the county clerk. So, what does this do? It just lets other researchers see what I've already done. And it helps to show that I thought about searching for that stuff, and it wasn't there. There is no birth certificate that's going to come to light. So that's a suggestion. Now, the good thing about the discussion is I could delete it if I wanted to, but others could not. Sometimes you want to make sure nothing gets messed up on the FamilySearch Family Tree, and that way you can make sure that it doesn't get deleted by someone else.
Yeah, because everything else on the profile for Robert Sisney, anyone else could come along and change your note, delete a note, or change the birth date. But under discussions, that's kind of nice that it's kind of like a Facebook comment thing where like you can delete your own comment, but you can't delete other people's comments, right?
Right. So that's important to know that you can actually put something on there. It's kind of like a virtual sticky note. I think that it's really helpful when people put positive comments on here. Sometimes people will say kind of negative things like, this person did not live here or whatever. Try to coach things in a positive frame or maybe a professional tone so that it doesn't have to get personal about other researchers and the poor research you think they might be doing. So we can be civil on the FamilySearch Family Tree.
We can collaborate like a pro too, as we research like a pro.
Exactly. It's all about collaboration. That is right.
Well, I left a comment on your discussion there, so I hope you like it.
Oh, fun. Well, thank you for adding a comment. Nobody had commented on this yet.
I think we're the only ones researching our grandpa's side.
Yeah, which really is a blessing because then I know that stuff I put up there's going to last. Okay, so what are we going to talk next? That was standard number 1, reasonably exhaustive research.
All right, let's do standard number 2 from the GPS, which is complete and accurate citations. So on page 2, where all of the standards of the GPS are defined, it says, complete and accurate source citations demonstrate the research extent and source's quality. They enable others to replicate the steps taken to reach a conclusion. Inability to replicate research casts doubt on its conclusion. Wow, okie dokie. So we know that we need to have good source citations, which tell others how to get to the source that we looked at. And the other part of it is that our citations demonstrate the source's quality and our research extent. So if we have a citation to an authored source, that probably isn't going to show that we did a lot of exhaustive research to find where that information originally came from in an original record. But if we have a citation to an original record, then people can see this is a high quality source, and this researcher actually saw an original document that has primary information. So our citations do a lot. They do more than just helping others get to where we were. They actually show the quality of our research. So how do we apply this to making the FamilySearch Family Tree better? Well, anytime you attach a record to an individual in FamilySearch in the tree, a citation is automatically generated, and that image or entry in a database or index is attached to their sources list. So with the 1880 census, the source attached to Robert Royston has a citation that's attached. So let's go through this citation and see if it's complete and accurate. It says United States Census 1880, database with images from FamilySearch. Then it has the full link to the actual image that Robert Royston is found on. It has the access date, 12 May 2016. And then it has the detail, which is Robert Royston. And then it has all of the locations, each jurisdiction, Precinct 3, Johnson County, Texas, United States. And additional details, citing Enumeration District 83, Sheet 293C, National Archives and Record Administration, or NARA, microfilm publication T9, and Washington, D.C. It even tells the roll 1313, and Family History Library microfilm number. So this is an extremely complete citation for a census. It has the layers, and it includes the detail of Robert Royston, which sometimes those citations that are automatically generated don't include the detail of who it's about or the exact page number, but this one does. So this is a great citation. We can easily replicate the search for the census on FamilySearch, or even go to the National Archives and find it there. Or we could also find it on Family History Library microfilm. Those are each of the 3 layers there. All right. So that was an example of a citation for Robert Royston. Sometimes, though, you might find a source that is just in a county courthouse that you have seen there, or a different website that's not in FamilySearch that you will want to create a source in FamilySearch for. When I find a source on another website, I use the tool RecordSeek to help me create a source. And it creates the link for me, and then I can type in my citation, and it helps me attach it to the person in FamilySearch Family Tree. Or you can just upload a document that you've taken a picture of and create a source that way in FamilySearch Family Tree. And you can describe the source or create a transcription there, but always make sure that you put a complete citation as well. And if you want to learn more about how to do citations, we will put a link in the show notes to Diana's post called Source Citations, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. She also has a Roots Tech talk with the same title that you can watch the video of on the Roots Tech website from 2018. So let's go over a citation that Diana created for Thomas B. Royston's estate file. And she viewed this record on microfilm at the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. So she needed to upload that and create the source on FamilySearch and attach that to Robert Royston. So her citation that she created included who created the source, the title of the source, where is the source, and where in the source is the specific record found. Here is the citation. Alabama Probate Court, Chambers County, Settlement Records, Volume 7, 1868 to 1884, Settlement Records, Volume 8, 1870 to 1876, Settlement Records, Volume 9, 1876 to 1884, Settlement Records, Volume 10, page 1 through 389, 1895 to 1896, Family History Library microfilm number 1,862,629, Item 3, Volume 9, page 505, Salt Lake City, Utah. So that is a very complete citation. Can you tell us what all these volumes were?
I'm just cracking up as you're reading that because there's a lot of numbers in that. And even looking at it, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of numbers. I think I probably could have simplified that. So what I put in there was what the FamilySearch catalog description of that microfilm said. That's why it says Settlement Records, Volume 7, 8, 9, and 10, and gives all the year dates. And so the one that I actually used was Volume 9 in Item 3. So I've since learned that sometimes I simplify that big title that might have all the records held in that microfilm down to just the one that I'm actually using.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. Well, I noticed at the end that you say Item 3, Volume 9. So
Yeah.
that whole first part is the complete title of the microfilm.
Yep. And looking at this now, I should have added what this was actually about and the name of Thomas B. Royston. That's his estate settlement. So
Yeah, the detail.
right. And I neglected to do that. And all I can say in my defense is that I wrote this post early on when I was learning about source citations, and I've learned and I've improved. And so, anybody listening who's so scared of source citations that you don't even want to try it, just put down whatever you think will be helpful. And there's always room to go back and improve. And luckily we can go back and change things that we need to. You just need to put something in there for where you found this record, what it's about, where is it, how could somebody else find it again. So in the Family Search Family Tree, we need to have source citations. So let me just make a little note here that if you get some information from an Ancestry Family Tree, a good source citation does not say Ancestry Family Trees. That's not a good source citation. So a good source citation would be a complete description of the Ancestry Family Tree you got it from. The title, then everybody has to give their family trees a name. And so you could say Ancestry Public Member Tree, and then put the name of it, and then the ancestor that it's referencing. Maybe I like to put their birth and death dates. So give more details so that somebody can actually go look at that family tree and see what's there. So I'm not saying you can't use those as sources. They're not great sources, but if you really need to reference one, try to make a little bit better description of it. Okay, so that was number 2, source citations. Number 3, the genealogical proof standard component number 3 is analysis and correlation. So on page 2, it says critical tests of relevant evidence through processes of analysis and correlation facilitate sound interpretation of information and evidence. They also ensure that the conclusion reflects all the evidence, including the best existing evidence. Okay, so what does that mean? Analysis and correlation. And how do we use that in the Family Search Family Tree? Well, this is just saying we have looked at a source and we understand what that source is all about. What information is it giving us and how are we using that for evidence to prove something? So when you are entering a new source in Family Search Family Tree, has anybody ever seen the little box pop up? Reason the source is attached, and you're supposed to type something in the box? I can't see everybody raise your hands out there, but I'm just going to ask, who's ever just ignored that box and clicked save instead? So I think probably all of us get in a hurry and we think, oh, I don't want to think of a reason. Or you write in something like, this is the source, or this is the reason. I've seen all sorts of funny things put in there by people. But think of this as an opportunity instead to actually state the evidence provided by the source. So for instance, if you have a birth certificate and it says reason the source is attached, you would just say something simple like, the birth certificate provides evidence of the parents, the birth date, and the birthplace. It could be something simple. It doesn't have to be a really long, involved paragraph. It could be just something simple. Think about what you're learning from the source and how it's proving something. Another example I have for this is my Robert Sisney Royston, back to my case study here. Remember I said at the beginning, I don't have a birth certificate because they didn't do birth certificates in Alabama in 1848. So I don't really have anything that says his father is Thomas B. Royston. He's in the 1850 and 1860 censuses in the household, but those don't state relationships. So I can say that he's likely, but is it possible he was a son or a nephew or a cousin or other relative with the last name and just happened to be there? Of course it is. That is something that could come to light that could overturn my conclusion. So I need to keep looking for additional evidence. And what I found was in the probate file for Thomas B. Royston, he actually does name his heirs. And one of those is Robert C. Royston. Well, the only problem was the probate files in Alabama. Robert Royston in the 1880s is in Texas. And that's all well and good, except for he's in Johnson County, Texas, and the probate mentions Robert C. Royston of Kaufman County, Texas. So now I have to continue analyzing and correlating that and show that Johnson County was right next door to Kaufman County. This was a bunch of indirect evidence that I had to put together. And on the Family Search Family Tree, I could do all of that in a life sketch, which is exactly what I did, because this was kind of complicated. And I wanted to make sure people understood how I connected these two men together without a record that really states clearly how these two are connected. So I wrote out a life sketch. Life sketches don't let you put in source citations, but I found that people are likely to click on a life sketch. I also uploaded my research report, which has source citations, but I figure the life sketch will probably get read more because it's right there at the top. So that is where I correlate all the different evidence that I have been figuring out. So your correlation on Family Search can be something simple, just like that reason statement, or it could be a discussion, where you want to maybe put some ideas in just the discussion or write a life sketch. So it's just important somewhere on our person's page to write something explaining how we got to the reasoning that we did.
So important. That's good. I love the idea of putting it in the life sketch so that somebody can just quickly see that there's a little bit to read there, and then they can click to read more, and then they can see your narrative there explaining all of your correlation and analysis. So great. Let's go to component number 4 of the GPS, resolution of conflicting evidence. In genealogy standards, it says resolution of conflicting evidence substantiates the conclusion's credibility. If conflicting evidence is not resolved, a credible conclusion is not possible. So it's not okay to just say that you're ignoring conflicting evidence because you've just chosen one. You need to explain why one piece of evidence is stronger than the other. And we can do that on FamilySearch Family Tree while we are explaining our reasoning. And we can put it in several different places, like we've mentioned before, in the reason statement box. We can add notes to a source and add notes there. We can do it in the life sketch, but we do need to explain the conflicting evidence. In the example of Robert Sisney Royston, there were 2 censuses for 1880. So, like Diana mentioned before, what's going on with that? That seems like it could be conflicting evidence. Are there 2 people with the same name, or was he enumerated twice? Well, it turns out that he was enumerated twice. Both listings are in Johnson County, Texas. One is in Precinct 1 on June 26th, and the other is on Precinct 3 on June 7th. So it seems that the family moved in between those 2 dates. And it's interesting to note the differences in information between the 2 enumerations. Most of the family members' names were the same, except for 4-year-old Mary Royston became Clemsy Carpenter. And Diana figured out that this is the same child, but she's a stepdaughter to Robert from his wife Isabel's first marriage. So her surname was Carpenter, but she could also be known by her stepfather's surname, Royston. And her nickname was Clumsy, but her real name was Mary. So that was interesting. So what you would need to do with a situation like that is to let other people know why you've added both of those sources and how you've resolved this conflicting evidence and kind of the background, so that somebody doesn't come along and say, oh, there's 2 and they're different people. We need to unattach one of these sources. So what you can do is add notes to the source. So if you go to the source and click edit under the source title, then you can click add in the notes section, and you can explain conflicting information right there. And then at a glance, you can see what information the source contains and any notes that you have added or other people have added. So that's a great way to explain conflicting information in the FamilySearch Family Tree.
All right. Thank you for going through and explaining all that. I love that example of the 2 1880 censuses, and I use that in my census class as an example of different people giving the information, because I believe that when Clemsy Carpenter is noted as Clemsy Carpenter, it was Robert giving the information because he says no relation. And then I believe his wife is giving the information on the other census because she names her as Mary Royston and says daughter. So I thought that was just so interesting. So our final component of the GPS is a written conclusion. And Genealogy Standard says a soundly reasoned, coherently written conclusion eliminates the possibility that the conclusion is based on bias, preconception, or inadequate appreciation of the evidence. It also shows or explains how the evidence leads to the conclusion. So there's some pretty strong words in there that I actually really love. I love the word coherently because it is difficult to write genealogically. coherent statements. I do this all day long, and trying to get my thought process into words can sometimes be a trick. So if you're struggling with that, just know it does get easier, and it doesn't have to be a perfectly written conclusion or a statement, but the ideas just have to be there. Even if your writing you feel isn't very strong, you can keep working on that. You have to make sure that you have something written down, because that's the only way that you finally pull everything together. So on the FamilySearch Family Tree, this can be a simple statement if the evidence from the sources is straightforward. So in your life sketch, you could just say something simple like the birth certificate shows the parents of your ancestor, and he appears in the censuses in the family, and you can just lay it all out there. It's pretty simple. But if it's more indirect, like the example I stated about Robert Sisney Royston, then again, you can put that in a life sketch or upload a report. You could do a little bit more to actually write that all out. So there's a lot of places to write information on the FamilySearch Family Tree. And just in conclusion, let's just look at those one more time, just to kind of review. So the first thing, reasonably exhaustive research. So you'd want to look on your ancestors detail page, make sure there are a lot of sources, not just one source. Figure out what else could be added to his sources to prove events of his life. Then number 2 was complete and accurate source citations. So you're going to make sure if you've put something on there that you've got a good source citation leading someone to your source again. Number 3 was analysis and correlation. You can actually enter something in that little reason box while you're attaching it. Put a reason in there about why this source provides some information and evidence to prove something. Number 4 was resolution of conflicting evidence. If we have things that conflict, 2 dates that don't agree, we can put a note or a discussion. We can put that in the life sketch. We can have some kind of a resolution about why there might be 2 different dates for a birth, or why there might be 2 different variations of a name for a person. We can write something out that explains that or resolves it. And then finally, a written conclusion. When we feel like we've done everything we can on an ancestor's page, found all the records, they're all sourced, we've taken care of reason statements, we can write some kind of a conclusion about that ancestor so that somebody who's brand new to this family can come and read and learn all about them. And they can see all of your good work in researching your ancestor.
Well, that was great. I think it's so good to review the GPS and think about how we can use it in the collaborative family tree of FamilySearch Family Tree. And if you use WikiTree or another collaborative tree, it's another great place to put your conclusions as well. All right. Well, thanks for listening today, and we will talk to you guys next week. Have a great week.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Research Like a Pro with Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional, and Nicole Dyer. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your own genealogy research. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or visit our website, FamilyLocket.com, to contact us. You can find our book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist's Guide, on Amazon.com and other booksellers. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro